to our earlier point, I genuinely think it was truly just like a headline. Like, I feel like AI is yet another one of those like words that people know it's divisive. And so they're going to throw it in because they know that you're going to go beyond that paywall. I did not make it beyond that paywall. But what I can take from that headline is I do feel like there's some sort of benefit that corporate America gets from pitting us against each other. And
obviously,
like, to your point, Kyle, of like, it naturally is going to flow in a chronological order just based on the nature of the bottlenecks. I think that that has not changed. I think that just the years that Gen X even has on millennials right now definitely has cemented them the kinds of roles that matter, if that makes sense, in like a corporate perspective. I think where there is some different and maybe a layer of threat where maybe there is accuracy in parts of this article is that millennials were able to also be present during the early stages of the internet in a way that allows them to create their own opportunities. And so you're seeing a lot of startups that are started by millennials that are competing with these large corporations that have been around for centuries.
All right. Hip replacement, episode number 22. We are here, Kyle, with Darrel Kennedy, who's zooming in from Chicago, from what I understand. But that's all I know. Tell me more.
Okay, let me give Darrel up, our guest from Chicago, our second Chicago guest, actually, unless we've had another one that I don't know about. But Darrel runs the Blacks of Arena Substack, which is a really great, just sort of like source of inspiration. I think you do a really good job sort of curating just sort of like culture and what's happening on Arena from Black creators. Arena, if people don't know, is sort of like a platform of ideas, which is very cool. It's very, I feel like the people who are on Arena are like diehards, which I feel like Darrel, you are exactly that.
Yes,
Darrel's also a creative producer and a brand consultant as well. So welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
So I have to, normally we go straight into, you know, the litany of Gen X complaints as voiced by me. But I wanted to just ask a question, first of all, because Arena, to me, I've always been a little confused by it. And it's not, I know you're not speaking for it, but I also am a little, like, I want to understand better how you would describe an Arena creator or an Arena person versus a, I don't know what, a Pinterest person or a Tumblr person or a, I don't know, WeTransfer. It's just, there's a whole series of things that feel like they could be sort of in the same zone. And I've never understood it. Every time I go, it looks cool. And their think pieces in particular, I think are awesome. And I link to them sometimes, but please explain.
Yeah, great question. I feel like some people, they're just like, what is Arena? But I feel like you kind of got the gist that it's like a curatory platform. I think that thread is what those different platforms have in common. I think another thing that they all have in common is that there's so many different kinds of people that use them. And so I think Arena is no different, in which on Pinterest, you could find a mom blogger on there. You can also find like an animator on there. It's truly how the tool is used that I think starts to become the common thread with why people gravitate towards Arena. And so I think the kind of people, even though very diverse in interest and output, and also intake, like things that are inspiring them, really is the fact that they're primarily anti-establishment, usually a little sarcastic, and they're anti-algorithm. So that's like one of the best things about Arena is that it's not just another noisy platform that's constantly trying to make money off of your attention. They're very great at honoring their values, and they just celebrated their 14th birthday. Happy belated birthday to them. I know, right? I didn't even realize, because I've been on for about, I thought I was like an OG. I've been on for like 7 or 8 years, but apparently I got right in the middle of it, you know? So, so happy birthday to them.
I mean, 7 or 8, I definitely never heard about it before. I mean, I've known maybe for 4 years, but so that makes you an OG for sure.
In ways, I'm like realizing there's truly are like real OGs. Like, it kind of humbled me to see how old the platform is. But I think that's also the great thing about it, is that the community is so good at, I wouldn't say gatekeeping it, I would say like arena users are truly passionate about it, and myself is not an exception. Like we will go to the ends of the earth trying to explain it to people.
Right.
But the girls that get it, and the girls that don't. And that's
Right.
the best thing about it. It's a very uphill onboarding. And one thing
Well,
we're working I was gonna say one thing we're working on at Black Star Arena is trying to figure out a concise way to onboard people because it is such a great
right.
tool.
Sure.
But that is quite the most magical thing about it is that it hasn't been taken over in a way that you've got all of these huge like financial and money offers to the team. That's it's hard to turn down when you're a small tech company. So shout out to their team; they're amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say is like, I feel like that's sort of like the ethos and sort of like energy behind it sort of it's not gatekeeping, but it's sort of like people at a certain level of taste and output, as you said, that like sort of like that naturally sort of like attracts and propels a certain type of creative and a type of person. So like it's to again to your point, like the girls who get it, and it's like I know that people who can stumble upon and be like, what is this? And then just like leave.
Right.
It takes a bit more of like, uh, it requires some looking, a specific way of looking. And
Yeah.
like, I don't use it. Like I have a lot of respect for Arena. I think it's a great tool, but like I'm very much the person who's like, I've been online and have enough tools for so long that I'm like, I can't bring something else on. Like
Another
that is
one.
like, yeah, I love what you do, but like, I'm going to watch from the outside.
So the way I hear it described, it sounds a little bit like the art house cinema of image sharing platforms or something like that.
That's
Yes.
a great connection. There's actually
Yes.
a channel on Arena where people can like describe how they would describe Arena at a party. And so I love looking through that to source new ways to like connect people to like how to wrap their head around it.
Right.
Because to your point, it's like it truly is, it's like a white space when you get on. It's literally like a blank white wall. And then you have to start to find the flow to create a stream for your feed. Like they're not going to suggest anybody for you. So you have to create that in real time.
Gotcha. Okay, I understand that a little bit better. It also, I thought of art house cinema because producer Campbell and I were watching Chungking Express last night for the first time on Criterion, so we're very art house. We have art house on the brain at the moment. But the other reason is because the description of it as let's call it anti-establishment or anti-corporate or maybe not, like without corporate vested corporate interest or whatever, reminds me a lot of Gen X and the nostalgia for the sort of reality bites, slacker culture, the veneration of that kind of like lost generation thing, which the Wall Street Journal wrote about. There's a guy named Adam Kirsch in the Wall Street Journal, and he starts this article which is called "Is Gen X Nostalgia Just Trauma Bonding?" And then goes on to say there's a little something sad in all the memes that try to capture the essence of my generation of latchkey kids turned cynical slackers. He's writing this as he comes up on his 50th birthday, which I just passed about a month ago, and I think I'm a little conflicted about this article because I think the sentiment is right, which is this nostalgia sort of like self-pitying and woeful and a little stupid. But I also really resent the use of the word trauma bonding within it because it turns it into the kind of therapy language that I think is much more millennial trait.
I was gonna say,
and so I'm just like, why are we doing this to ourselves? So anyway, thoughts, guys?
I mean, I like the premise. I do agree that like I don't know if trauma bonding is the right word. I think it's more like funny enough, like Arena, like you said, it's more like a way of looking, which I think is true of any generation.
Yeah.
But I do think there is a sort of like united in like being a bit not anti the man, but like a bit of just like, yeah, whatever, like fuck it, like I'm just sort of vibing sort of thing, which I really appreciate. And perhaps that is from a quote unquote trauma bond thing. I don't know if that's how I would describe it though. I don't know how I would describe it. Darrel, if you have a sort of description for the ethos, like have at. But like I don't know if it is. I feel like trauma bonding is just a media hype term that they use to sort of like sell that article.
Oh yeah, until I kind
So
of
I
hook you in, like that
totally,
keyword.
and it worked clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, it's funny because it reminds me again of the. I was listening to some podcast over the weekend about how writers don't title their stories, and yeah, I wonder if our friend Mr. Kirsch would have, titled it that way,
Done it
or whether that was some
different.
millennial editor who was like, "Hey, I know how
This
to
is what's gonna
optimize.
stick.
I know how to optimize for the answer engine." Ay, ay, ay.
Well, one
Yeah.
thing I would say too is, and this has kind of been my like a little bit of a gripe with my Gen Xers in my life, is that they hate certain language. Like they're very easily triggered, pun intended, triggered
You're pissing
by
me off,
certain
Darrell.
words.
You're pissing me off.
I already know. I know how to push those buttons. I've got 2 Gen X
Yeah,
parents.
fair enough. Okay,
Oh
fine.
man, yeah.
But what's I always try to articulate to them, which I think maybe they will never understand, is that even though they don't like the vocabulary, it's still applicable. It's describing something
Yeah.
that's actually still happening. We can call it something else if that makes them more comfortable. But I think maybe trauma bond, even though it's one of those like tongue in cheek, catchy words that's going to show up in an algorithm, going to show up in SEO, search engine or whatever, may be applicable. It may be something that really does fit, because I think that trauma bonding sounds way worse than it may be. I think you can argue that art and enjoying art is trauma bonding. Like we trauma bond regularly to affirm our human experience. But
Sure.
it's like, I think millennials and psychology culture and therapy culture did a good job of making it just sound so cringe to articulate these like moments of emotion and like exchange that
No, sorry to cut you off. I think look,
No,
that's
you're
exactly
good.
right. And beyond that, it also, to me, this whole thing is a little bit emblematic of something that annoys me and maybe annoys your Gen X parents too, which is the idea of that because we, whoever the collective we in that case is, millennial generation, young people, generally internet lexicographers, because we have named a thing, we have like defined its existence and we've essentially like made it real. Like, and I'm sitting there going, no, hang on, guys, that's been going on forever. Like we just didn't call it anything because it was just like, come on, toughen up and go forward. Sorry,
But I agree. I totally agree. There's no need to apologize. You're absolutely right. It has been going on forever. It's just
Kyle seemed nonplussed by that statement.
Well, I think when we think about, because I was sort of like, sorry, when I went off in my brain for a moment, but I was like,
that's okay.
Are millennials like, and Gen Z, like, are there certain things that we quote unquote trauma bonded over? And I do think like, yes, there is. Like, I think a lot of millennials would talk about like, the 2008 recession and like not being able to get a job and like the 2016 election and things like that. And like for Gen Z, it's also the 2016 election and COVID and things like that. These sort of like mass communal events. And like, I think like what that term gets at, unless the article said something different, is like what the headline in that term is getting at. It's just like there are certain things that we as a culture in our collective consciousness experience, and that defines us. And like that's how we bond. Like, I don't know if, again, in that story, I didn't read the whole thing. Like, I don't know if there is mentioned specific unique things, like I just mentioned for Gen X, that really bond them, but like, and that they're constantly talking about. I don't know that because like I know it's definitely a millennial. It doesn't come up that often where it's like every time you hang out, it's like, remember the recession? Like that doesn't happen. Like it definitely informs like that most people in like my friend groups like don't have a house or like don't have kids and like things like that. That's sort of like the fingerprints of that sort of like communal experience. I think that is true. That's why I sort of like when I was on here, I was like, yeah, what did we do? But I feel like that's like true again of everybody. But like that is.
That's life. That's how we like make sure that we're not crazy and alone.
That's right. That's right, Darrell.
Exactly.
And when we've talked about this a bunch on the show, but it's like Kyle, your point. Many of your friends don't have a home that they own at this point, right? Like it's a very significant milestone in somebody's life. By the same token, that used to be the case for Gen X as well, and then we figured it out, right? And sometimes that meant moving cities, sometimes that meant ending into fixer-upper projects, it meant moving to bad neighborhoods, it meant whatever it was, and so over the course of time things change, and so you sort of look through past. Or I guess this is the thing. I'm anti rose tinted glasses, and I want everybody to be anti rose tinted glasses because I just don't think it's helpful. But by the same token, I also think like exactly to Darrel's point. This is life. This is how life goes. Life is tough. Work at it, and it oftentimes will turn out well for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to say that like I'm curious, like Darrel, from like a younger point of view, and from also like Chicago point of view too, is that like these stories too, and to the point of the experience you just talked about, Ben, and the experience I talked about too, like, you know, not owning a house, whatever, is like these are also, if we want to get even further, but also apart from generation, is that like these are all very like creative people who live in a city, expressions of life.
Yes.
Because like I don't think that that's true for, you know, people who are, or not all people, but a lot of people who live not in a major city, number one, and number two, people who aren't working creatives. Like I think that that's sort of like, I don't have a home or a child or whatever we want to call the markers of adulthood until your 40s is a response to being like, you know, cities are expensive and being a working creative is a pretty precarious sort of like lifestyle. And so I think a lot of that is true. And like, I don't think that that is unique to a generation or a specific place. But like, again, I'm curious, like Darrel, what do you think from the Chicago POV?
It's so funny because Chicago specifically is such an interesting city. You've got the people who come from other parts of the Midwest and some parts of the South who are like, oh my God, this is the biggest move I ever did. This is so expensive. Like they're complaining about how overwhelming Chicago is. And then you have people like myself who realized LA was not it. New York's not it. It's a little expensive. And then you get to a city like Chicago that, in my opinion, and I may be biased because I'm originally from here, is better. You know, hot take. It's better than all of them.
Okay.
But you get better on a discount. You know, my rent that I'm paying now for, you know, a great place, a great neighborhood is more than half. Less than half.
Less than
what
half,
I was paying in a sketchy neighborhood in Los Angeles. Yeah. And, you know, I'm loving life. You know, I'm still able to do a lot of the things. Of course, I do get winter, but there are perks to that. And I think, too, there's a certain level of humility that you embrace by going through cold things. But it's interesting.
True, fair. It humbles you.
I mean, as a child of
it's like
Syracuse,
a whole conversation
I can tell you
for
that
like
right now.
another day. Oh, yeah. Gosh, Syracuse. Yeah. You guys are probably like that northeast side. Ooh, you guys probably kind of feel our pain.
For sure.
Especially coming from a city like LA where it's warm all the time. People just have no respect for the weather. So out here, summer is like a movie. You're like in a mesh, you know, like you're a different person for just 3 months. So absolutely love it here. I will say having the perspective of coming from a big city to a smaller city that really is a hidden gem, it makes me feel like I can do anything. I do feel empowered, like I can buy a house. I do know that if I want to buy a house in Chicago, I'm not going to get a condo in the city, probably going to go down south or, you know, north, definitely not west, but south or north, likely south, if I want to buy a house. And I think kind of deviating, but also still trying to answer your question, I think what's interesting about Gen Z specifically, and I consider myself a true zillennial. I'm 1997, like right on the cusp.
Yeah, sure.
So I see both sides like Chanel, you know? And I feel like myself and my Gen Z friends, we all have this mindset of adulthood is what we make it. Life is what we make it. Success is what we make it. And I think with us being digital natives and internet natives, we're able to see so many different versions of happiness that we're kind of releasing these ideas of needing a family to feel affirmed, needing a house to feel affirmed. I just had a conversation with a friend who's actually Gen X, which is crazy. But we were talking about capitalism and ownership. And he's kind of, you know, a little bit radical thinking, very hotep-y. He's going to hate me when he hears this, but it's true.
So tell us about your friend Hotep then. Yeah, let's go ahead.
It's true. But, you know, he brought up a great point. We were talking about, he's like, is LeBron James a capitalist? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I think we all, yeah, I know.
That's a weird question. Sorry. Did you stop and be like, wait, what?
Right,
That's a weird
right.
You know, I
question to
try to
even
hear
ask.
everybody out. I try to hear everybody out
okay,
because I
so
knew he was getting somewhere with that.
Yeah, well, tell us. Okay, so sorry, please tell me the other side of that because I don't understand how that could be even a question.
I thought the same thing at first, and I see his
And I'm in
perspective.
support. I'm in support. So sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah,
Darrel, go ahead.
it was interesting because his perspective was, I asked him, like, you know, the question of, does LeBron James own a house? You know, I think anybody who's leaning into this idea of ownership being, you know, value in their lives is engaging with capitalism, i.e. a capitalist. You know, we may not be extreme capitalists, but, you know, me working a 9 to 5, I believe I am engaging with capitalism. And so I asked him, does LeBron James own a house? And he said, well, does he really own anything? He has to pay taxes every year on it. And I was like, you know what? I see where you're coming from. Like, yes, he does. But like also, then that started bringing up the bigger question of like, well, do we own ourselves? Our birth certificates are a
Right.
bank statement on our heads, you know?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
these
Okay.
are the kind of conversations
that
happen.
that
That's
mean
that got deep.
bless. Go, wait, sorry. Go ahead, Kyle.
These are just the conversations that happen in my life.
Those are great conversations to be had. Those are very big brain conversations. I can agree, but I also think like I will throw like capital C capitalism around versus lowercase c, which I think you were sort of talking about, Darrel. And I do think like, you know, anybody of us, you know, anybody with a capital B billionaire or very close to it, I'm going to say like you are cranking the machine and our oil is spilling out as you get to crank it. So anyway, that's my thought though.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay, look, I'm going to take the position of both big C and small c capitalists in this case and say that I don't like. First and foremost, Darrel, like that conversation went much bigger brain than I thought it was because then it gets this really gets into like grad student level, you know, discussions around economic philosophy and whatever. We're reading what's his name, the French guy who wrote the giant book 2-3 years. What's the name of that book? Giant economic book. Hold on. Is it called On Capitalism? Hold on.
Probably.
I studied entertainment business, so my math class stopped at, you know,
it was
finances
Thomas Piketty, who the Capital in the 21st Century, which was a huge bestseller 2020, longer than that. Anyway, it's impenetrable and impossible to read and gigantic, and it's kind of a bummer because it's a cool subject. But anyway, my point more so is we have this amazingly efficient and elegant system that works really well at elevating the quality of life of people all over the world and has done so continuously for centuries. But we may have reached a point with it where it has become so efficient that it loses its humanity or something like that. And I think that's ultimately what we're really talking about. Like, I don't think
it's easy to gamify, as we see, and hack it, and then that makes it harder for everybody else. I think
that's right. Which gets to my second complaint of the week, which is, Kyle, you sent the article from Fortune about how boomers are skipping Gen X and making millennials successors for their CEO jobs because they're down with AI. This is. I mean, I'm very interested to hear your take on this and yours too, Darrel. I will just simply say, if decisions are being made like that, they are missing the forest for the trees in such a radical way that I question the future of these companies. Period. So
totally. Well, I think that's like the whole like because of AI, it's like such a bullshit. That's no like that.
Yeah,
I don't believe that for a moment. I think like to me the thing is that like it is okay. You probably talk to like 3 companies that they probably are like maybe considering that, but I think by and large it sort of overlooks a sort of like blurry space of like a lot of leadership. I think already are Gen X, and like I think that sort of like goes under the radar. Is like
100%.
that is the case, and like in a lot of ways, like a lot of Gen X people have probably had positions of power for a bit longer and like for a longer period of time, which has boxed out millennials as a result. Because like it's the same thing I'm sure that's happened because they were waiting, Gen X was waiting for boomers, and they got to the position where they're like, I'm not letting go of this. So it's like, it's this classic, I think, bottleneck. So I remember like when I was sort of more within established spaces, be it a television channel or a publication or an agency, the unless you founded the agency or the company yourself and were a millennial, it was always Gen X who was leadership. There was very few, at least in creative fields, I encountered very few like boomer leadership. Maybe at the top on a board, but like the people in the day-to-day, like the bosses, and even the bosses were Gen X. Like
Well, I
that
think
was
this is
like
no, I don't question that. I think, and it reflects the fact that the creative industries, and it's one of the interesting discussions around the arena thing in the beginning. Creative industries were understood to be a young person's game. It was understood that people past a certain age couldn't be creative, capital C, and that has changed over the last 20, 25 years, I think, to the point where now somebody in their 60s can be, can have a conversation with a kid and they have actual value to impart as opposed to pure sort of novelty and youth, which used to drive the bus.
Welcome to hip replacement. That's the point.
Wow. I hadn't thought about this. I'm skipping both of you for a Gen A CEO of this podcast.
Oh my God. Lucky us.
Well, okay. So Darrel, I mean, but how does any of that land with you? I mean, as a let's call you a Gen Z person for the purposes of this. I know we said millennial, but I count anybody after 95 as Z's. So
really,
you're firmly a Z as far as I'm concerned.
Oh my goodness!
There is a blur.
Two shots.
There is a blur on all ends of all generations, but I do think like yeah, after 95 is my cutoff, I think.
Okay. Well, I'll lean into my Gen Z brain.
Yeah. So jump in, and when you read that story, I don't know, did it make you feel any type of way at all, or were you just like, ugh, boring?
Well, to our earlier point, I genuinely think it was truly just like a headline. Like, I feel like AI is yet another one of those like words that people know it's divisive. And so they're going to throw it in because they know that you're going to go beyond that paywall. I did not make it beyond that paywall. But what I can take from that headline is I do feel like there's some sort of benefit that corporate America gets from pitting us against each other. And
obviously,
like, to your point, Kyle, of like, it naturally is going to flow in a chronological order just based on the nature of the bottlenecks. I think that has not changed. I think that just the years that Gen X even has on millennials right now definitely has cemented them the kinds of roles that matter, if that makes sense, in like a corporate perspective. I think where there is some different and maybe a layer of threat where maybe there is accuracy in parts of this article is that millennials were able to also be present during the early stages of the internet in a way that allows them to create their own opportunities. And so you're seeing a lot of startups that are started by millennials that are competing with these large corporations that have been around for centuries. You're seeing a lot of digital publications and independent content creators who are making money that's competing with tech companies. I mean, not the big ones, but the ones that are making multiple seven figures. You have independent content creators who are making that too. And so you have, momagers who are, pimping out their alpha gen kids, but making millions of dollars, and those are millennials. You're having.
I was going to say, we're not talking about Lil Tay on OnlyFans.
No, we're not talking about that. No.
Trigger warning.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But you have so many unique forms of viable revenue that people are tapping into across generations. Even, my generation, Gen Z, is earning board seats. They're earning viable VP roles. And, True Jackson VP is no longer a fantasy. This is like real life because maybe they're bringing AI into the conversation. I think while it kind of is just like a hot take, I think there is some validity to being able to prompt properly and like leverage AI and understand it deeply, like how to use it to gain your own opportunities and how to use it to become more efficient. But I just think understanding these digital opportunities, even beyond AI, are allowing younger generations to kind of skip steps that Gen X never even had as an option.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kyle.
Well, I was just going to say really quickly, because something that you said, Darrel, something that's come up on the podcast before, and I feel like I have this conversation like every few weeks, and I've written about it before, but like I feel like I don't hear enough people talk about this, is that like this sort of boxing out of this bottleneck and the boxing out of younger talent, be them millennials or Gen Z, especially millennials now, because like they're hitting the point where like they're at the ceiling, they're like, I'm not getting any leverage upwards. They are then using the sort of like technologies that you talked about, Darrel, to like create their own creator platform or whatever that then ends up cannibalizing the job that didn't give them the love. And like that's exactly what's happening now in agency world in a lot of sort of spaces, is that it's like, look, you didn't give me any sort of room, you didn't give me a raise for so long, you didn't support me, and I built my own thing on the side, and now I'm taking your work. And like this sort of like corporate warfare, I think, is like going to be a defining feature of this era, where it is like, you know, these spaces, you box us out, we created different systems that work outside of it. And now like, look, there might be 10,000 small agencies instead of 100 big ones, but that's a response to you, the people who are in charge, and not just Gen X. And maybe they were millennials too, blocking out younger talent and like people being able to be upward.
Yep.
I mean, which is full-throated capital C capitalism. Hence my support. Hence my support thereof.
I can support. Fair.
By the way, speaking of inventive capitalism, hang on, viewers. This is why you need to tune in to Hip Replacement, because I'm going to show something on the screen like I did last week. Give me 5 seconds.
Okay. I don't know what excited. This is going to be. Yeah. Well, hey, last time it was a book. Oh, this is big. Oh wow. Oh my God.
Wait, what is this?
Oh wow. This is like
so
this drop?
So I told you. Yeah, so I told you I had. It's too big to show you anymore. But I had my 50th birthday recently, and my birthday happened to be the day that Mischief dropped their most recent King Solomon's Baby, and so somebody bought me a slice of the baby for my birthday, and it got delivered in that gigantic thing. We came home over the weekend. So anyway, yeah, this is how I'm staying in touch with younger generations. I'm getting slices of baby. By
getting other people to buy you Mischief drops.
But, well, no, believe me, this is just my friend Eric, shout out Eric. Yeah, totally his invention. I did not ask for that. It was not something that I was anticipating. And
hilarious.
He showed up to my birthday party and was like, I bought you a slice of the baby. Anyway, go ahead.
Excuse my ignorance. I don't know what Mischief is. This might be telling to like algorithmic bubbles. Because I'm like, so, I don't think I'm in that one yet.
All right. But that's, and I think this is actually the reason that I thought of it was because the idea of these secondary economies becoming primary economies, they are a very good example of that. They are sort of an art collective prankster team who, through the success of their viral red boots, which I'm sure you remember, the big red boots.
Yes.
Yeah. So they do projects like that all the time that are meant to be these culture jamming provocations that, seen through one lens, look like modern art or postmodern art. Seen through another lens, look like ingenious entrepreneurship commerce. In another lens, look like obnoxious trolling. And so it's you sort of as a consumer or a viewer, you make up your mind like, okay, that's art or that's commerce or that's obnoxious, one way or the other. But this particular project plays off the story from the Bible about King Solomon. The argument over, and I'm not a Bible scholar, so I might get some of this wrong, but it's King Solomon is adjudicating a dispute over a child between two impassioned parties who will not share the child. And he says, well, it's fine. I'll just chop it in half and then you can each have half and that's cool, right? Normal. And then everybody's like, well, okay, yeah, now we see the error in our logic, or the error in
classic tie breaking.
But so anyway, they made the giant, from what I understand, a giant styrofoam baby. And then they said, we're going to do an auction. And if one person buys the whole thing for $100,000, you get the sculpture, and we will go down to increments as low as $100, and we'll slice it into 1,000 pieces.
Oh my goodness!
So
damn.
I presume that's what happened. That they sold all 1,000 pieces, and I got my friend spent
So what's your plan with the slice of baby?
I have no idea. I mean, it's in a giant. I mean, you see the size. Okay, so for those that aren't watching, this box is 4 feet by 4 feet at least. So you figure the slice has got to be something approaching that. And so I have no idea. I mean, we're blessed with lots of wall space, but I don't know where it's going to go exactly.
Yeah.
I also don't know what it's made of. I presume it's just styrofoam. So maybe we'll make a coffee table out of it.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, that would be a cool art project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. But I digress heavily, as is often the case. But the point I guess I was trying to make more so is that I think what you're intuiting is that these systems of imbalance find correction through the positive action of people. And so and it gets back to the complaint about the whole trauma bonding thing. It's like, if all we do is sit around and wring our hands and go, woe is me, or things used to be better, or I don't have agency or whatever, you ignore the fact that you can change things now.
Yeah. Right. We've got more power than we ever have.
That's
and
right.
we have more agency than we've ever had. That's something that I preach all the time within the Black Soul Arena community, is just reminding people that like we can create our own realities, our own happiness, our own peace. And so, especially in a world where like our algorithms are so intuitive, they're so sensitive, and they're listening very closely, we can even hack those, and those can ultimately hijack the results of our lives. You know, I remember I took a break from Instagram last summer, and I got back on Instagram to run the Black Soul Arena Instagram, just so that we could have that sort of like portfolio, like digital portfolio for like upcoming partnerships and events that were coming up. And that was a huge leap, because I knew Instagram could be very impactful to my mind state. And it was quite interesting, the 2 weeks that I had of just like Instagram trying to figure out who I am. Because by the end of those 2 weeks, I was seeing the shade room again. I was seeing attractive Black men with their shirts off on live again. And I was like, dang it, they got me. This is supposed to be an intellectual space. Yeah, no. If my community could see what our like Explore page looked like, they'd just be like, Darrel, really? How are you using this?
That's hilarious. I love that.
I'm sorry, y'all.
No, I mean, that's it. But this is what I think is so interesting about Arena. If you say it's anti-algorithm, is that it's a means by which to not have that. So
exactly,
I'm sold. I'm going to go spend a bunch of time on Arena.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the Gen X, and obviously we've sprinkled in Millennial and Gen Z. But Kyle, one thing that you pointed out, and I wanted your read on this, because it did not seem like a canon event to me at all, and yet you seem very excited about it. Freakier Friday.
Freakier Friday. I don't think it was necessarily a canon event, but I think a lot was sort of riding on the success of it, meaning that
sure.
There was a lot of like, there probably is, but like a poly market bet on like, is Freakier Friday going to mean the Lindsay Lohan Renaissance is going to continue? Is she going to be doing bigger things? I think people really underestimated the power of like horror films, especially in this economy. And like that weapons really blew up. But I don't think, I'm probably misremembering the numbers. I think like Weapons got like 70 million and Freakier Friday got like 40. So like it really wasn't that awful. I think those numbers might be wrong, but it was something like that.
Yeah, the according to the CNN article I'm looking at, the Weapons did 43 and Freakier Friday did 29. That's domestic box office, not
that's not awful at all. That is like that's totally perfectly fine. But like I think it gets at a lot of sort of like, you know, I think there are a lot of millennial leading celebrities, let's say. I don't know. But like, I feel like for whatever reason there is, and this might be, well, actually, no. But like, I was going to say this might be uniquely millennials, that like we, you know, care about someone like Lindsay Lohan having a comeback. People like that. But like, you know, as I saw there was some critic who critiqued, you know, like, well, Lindsay Lohan's coming back, like we can't erase her like past, which was very sordid or whatever. And then someone pointed out very wisely, like, we didn't do the same thing with like Robert Downey Jr. So like, sure, like it's a very fair point. I think that whole discussion is sort of bullshit. But like all that to say is that like this happens for every generation. There's always going to be a comeback story.
100%. This is like Winona Ryder circa Stranger Things.
So absolutely, that's exactly it.
You know what I mean?
But like I think this sort of like, oh, Freakier Friday is going to be the Lindsay Lohan comeback thing. I think that's sort of like a false flag when, like, if I'm remembering correctly, and I could be remembering very incorrectly, is that like Zach Cregger's and like Julia Garner and like all the things that happen with weapons is millennial, and that did so
for
well,
sure.
which is like
Well,
so ironic that like, but that's it's more about the comeback story I think people are trying to sell.
Okay, because I thought, and Darrel, jump in here too, because I thought this was more a discussion about the intergenerational appeal of Freakier Friday, not between Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan, but between millennial moms and their young daughters. And certainly the report from the Calhoun Theater where Harper worked over the weekend was that there were a lot of moms and daughters, basically. So I thought that was an interesting sort of cute, intergenerational bonding moment. And I like Lindsay Lohan, bringing moms and daughters together. Who better?
Yeah. No, seriously.
No
I think
opinion.
she's genuinely with this comeback rebranding as like a mom figure. I've
Yeah,
seen some commercials. I do not remember the product that they're trying to sell me. I've become a professional at like draining out ad language.
Good for you.
You say so, but your IG feed says otherwise.
That's not ad language. That is attractive black men. That's very different. I have a weakness for that.
Fair enough.
But I did pick up on the fact that there's like an ad and she's like, oh, like I'm going to go pick my kid up from school. And like, oh, this is such a chic mom moment. And it's like, okay, I'm seeing it. She's rebranding from the party girl wild days to being like this recovered mom who's, childbirth has like born her into like a new person, which you do see happening. I think the same thing arguably happened with Keke Palmer. I think Keke Palmer had her biggest kind of boom in the return of pop culture when she had her child and sharing that narrative and how it changed her skin and her body and X, Y, and Z. But with this article, I think what stands out to me particularly, and maybe this is the Gen Z in me, that I'm starting to notice as a comeback is the comeback of Disney Channel in general. And I know Lindsay Lohan, she surpasses Disney Channel, The Parent Trap, like she did projects that were beyond Disney Channel, but I think she also is such a key figure of 90s and early 2000s Disney Channel. And you see these nightclubs coming up that are literally Disney Channel clubs for adults. Hannah Montana's going back on tour. The Jonas Brothers got back together. You're seeing Disney Channel making this resurgence. I even had a friend in Los Angeles who went to a Disney Channel pop-up in West Hollywood and was like fully excited. And I was like, I love this for you because I probably would have been excited too if I had alcohol involved. But I just was a little cringed out watching it, but it's like, it's happening. And I think eventually I'll get over it. It's like a Drake song. Like I'm cringe at first, but now I've heard it enough times, like, okay, whatever, I like it. But I think Disney Channel in general is making a comeback.
You're right. I mean, that's like even this weekend with the Jonas Brothers and Demi Lovato like, doing the whole Camp Rock reunion, which was a surprise, but also like to your point, like I don't think any of these sort of like the 90s, 2000s Disney Channel things resurfacing isn't anything other than like they know that like, a lot of millennial and Gen Z adults, they would rather sort of look at the past fondly than think about like the present or the future, which is like that's valid, but also like y'all, some of you are in your 40s. Like, let's
trauma bonding.
But listen, I mean, I think that this is the fundamental genius of Walt Disney's 1959 diagram about the Disney world, right? Not literally Disney World, but the world of Disney, where you had an IP concept at the center, and you had all of its different distillations, variations, and permutations. Spanning out into a storytelling universe that would allow you to go to a theme park, that would allow you to have spin-offs, that would allow you to have collectibles and toys, that would allow you to have licenses and meals and Disney cruise ships and so on and so forth. Like it's if we are seeing that proliferation of Disney coded IP come back to life, both Disney owned and otherwise, it makes sense because it's to the blueprint. So I don't know. Go find that diagram, guys. It's
capital C capitalism. We're having all these like loop backs, See?
Well, it's capital C capitalism. Wherever the flywheels are flying. So speaking of capitalism, we're all here because we love exchanging ideas, and this is fun to talk, but we all do have to get back to our day jobs. Darrel, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. Where do people find you? Like specifically, what's the newsletter called? Is there an Arena profile? How should they access that Instagram account you talked about? All that
for
stuff.
Blacks of Arena specifically, we are found under Blacks. So it's like plural, not singular, of RARE.NA. You can find us across Substack, Spotify, Instagram, and on Arena, we have like an official group page. We'll be rolling out some really exciting things this year. We're planning our first group retreat, insider information. Yeah, that'll be happening in 2026. And we also have... Yes, hip replacement exclusive. We've also got some merch that we designed in partnership with Arena that's for sale on the Arena gift shop right now. So I would lock into that. We designed it with longevity in mind. And so it's truly a wearable artifact with things that are inspired by and true artifacts from Juneteenth. And that just help the audience better understand the holiday itself. So definitely check those out. Super, super insightful and wonderful. For me personally, I still do not have Instagram. Maybe it will come back. I don't know. I love myself right now. I'm like barely hanging on to this like group account. But I do have Substack. I really do enjoy that platform. And so you can find me on Substack at Darrel Kennedy. On there, I plan to start writing more about just having better digital hygiene and balancing your personal and mental health with your digital life and how you can hack all those things in your real life through your devices. So
right.
Fabulous.
Keep you from trauma
bonding. We need that. Seriously.
You're like, no trauma bonding anymore.
Exactly. Sorry, guys. This is it. I'm calling a moratorium on the term. All right. Well, Darrel, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you. Kyle, I hope Copenhagen is treating you great. It's been fun reading about that and seeing the Instagram posts and everything. So everybody check out Kyle on the Trend Report and on all the other platforms at 1, 2, 3, 4, Kyle, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm at Deets Nuts with 2 Z's everywhere as well. So anyway.
There are 2 Z's.
DIETZ and UTZ. That's right. Yeah. See what not 2 Z's. All right. Well, everybody, this has been Hip Replacement episode number 22. Darrel, thanks again. Kyle.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Thanks, Darrel.
Have a good one. Bye.